India is a country with 12 crore people who are 60 plus today.
Right.
India will have 350 million, 35 crore people who are 60 plus in next 20 years. It's bigger than current US population. If you really want to serve the society, I think of all the quote-unquote businesses or industries that are there, I think healthcare is right at the top. In the second year of operation, we served India's president in President House. The lead came from Facebook, you won't believe it.
Are you serious?
Yes. They wanted a physiotherapist at home. To think of kind of credibility, trust which has to be built.
Swiggy and Zomato and you guys have taken over a decade to sort of crack India and be omnipresent in India. How do Indian consumers behave like? What gets them to pay higher price?
If you ask me one thing which changed the direction of business for us, that's how some of these companies have become what they have become.
Wow. So Vaibhav, before I sort of dive deeper into how do you start up and how do you build in healthcare and how do you build otherwise, tell me how big is Portea? How many people do you employ? How big is the business? How long has it been around?
Yeah, sure. So Portea started in 2013, exactly 12 years back. The whole idea was to look at outside the hospital healthcare services, because if you look India, the hospital healthcare is very, very good quality, right? If you look at any of the top hospitals, it's very good quality of healthcare. But the moment you get outside the hospital, and a lot of requirement is there, post to get discharged after surgery or elder care and things like that. So we looked at that need of the patients, and then looked at how we could solve that, and that's how Portea got started. We are present right now, if you ask me, we are present in 120 cities. We support over 15 to 17,000 patients every month.
15 to 17,000 patients
every month, yes. And we have served over maybe like a couple of million patients so far.
Already?
Yes.
So more than 20 lakh patients lifetime and roughly 2 lakh patients a year?
Roughly 2 lakh patients a year, yes.
So very operations heavy business?
Very operations heavy. Of course, services, healthcare services are always very operations heavy, whether you're in the hospital or outside the hospital. And in this particular case, of course, because I'm going to patients' homes, correct? So you have those many, so I'm not in one hospital, not in one office. I have like 6,000 offices, right? Where my clinicians are going to patients' homes. Right. So it's in some ways their office. In some ways our office also, right? That's where the patient is, that's where my clinician is, that's where the service is happening. So.
Right. So I want to ask you, in the digital era that we're today in, you could have easily built a software and then sold it, and you didn't have to get into an ops heavy business. Why get into a tedious sector like healthcare? I mean, you could have been elsewhere. You could have done way easier things. Why healthcare?
So healthcare is very fascinating in the sense that the need is very, very stark. Okay, and if you really want to serve the society, I think of all the quote-unquote businesses or industries that are there, I think healthcare is right at the top. And in that case, if you are solving a problem which has not been solved at a scale in this country, I mean, when we started home care and started Portea, it was totally unorganized market. But if you look at countries like US, UK, it's a very organized play. And it has been there for many decades. It's covered by insurance. It's very well established. It's a very, very critical part of healthcare. But in India, that didn't exist. But the need is very, very strong. So when we got into it, we realized that there's something where you can really make an impact. Correct? And of course, in the process of that, you create a thriving business, create something which creates so much of employment. As I say, the karma which you generate with this is of a different level actually. So of course, you can build software. I'm nothing for or against it. Of course, those are great businesses and people have done wonders in this country with that. But I think this has its own place and beauty and good karma attached to it. So.
Got it. But how hard has it been?
So of course it has its own set of challenges.
What are the challenges? Yeah.
Yes, its own set of challenges. It's as you were rightly saying, it's a very ops heavy business. But before it becomes ops heavy business, I think the idea is when you start this. So before we started, I'll just give an example. Physiotherapy as a service was being done in clinics. So you go to a doctor, if you have a neck pain, back pain, any problem, you go and see a doctor, and doctor says, okay, this is an issue, and you also need a physiotherapy to basically get better. What happened with us coming into play, if people have a lot of those illnesses, they call us first or somebody like us first. And so in many cases, until it's a very acute problem, they may end up going through a physiotherapist first and then to doctor if required. So that whole model got changed in some ways, right? So when you start something of this nature, of this scale, you always look at how to create the services, how to create a business model out of it, how to create the brand. And what is the most critical thing for healthcare? That is credibility. How to establish credibility? I mean, you always go to a doctor or you go to a hospital always a referral. If you have a problem, you'll think, okay, whom have you shown? Has anybody shown to anybody, and how's that doctor? That's how you go. So healthcare credibility becomes very important. So I think building a well-known brand, building something which patients can trust, which customers can trust, I think is the first thing which was the big challenge for us. Okay. And of course, it's an ops-intensive business. And in this case, I'm going to 6 on patients' homes every day. It's ops-intensive. My clinicians are there. There are, of course, traffic challenges, rest of the problems, and so on and so forth. And it's not like that the food is getting delayed. Yeah. So if you take a parallel, it's not your taxi is getting delayed. It's basically somebody who's coming to take care of your sick relative or sick family member. That person is getting delayed. Think of what will you think? I mean, and we do as intensive care as possible. Say, we set up ICUs at home. So somebody is recovering after discharge from the hospital, or somebody's end of life care. We do that complexity, setting up ventilator at home, hospital beds, doctors, nurses. From that to basically as simple as saying, okay, I'll also come and pick up a blood sample from your house, right? So the complete range of services, how do you make sure that this kind of work gets done round the clock without any issues, whether in terms of availability, reliability, or quality? All three are very critical, right? I have to be there. First, I'll say I'll be there, I better be there. Then if I say I can do in, CV Raman area, I should be having enough people to do this. And then, of course, when I'm coming in your house, I have to deliver the quality of service. Plus, in this case, I come and live in your house. The big difference is I'm not coming to your doorstep and going away from there by delivering something for you. I'm coming and living in your house. We serve maybe 1,000 odd patients every month, where we are the only ones living in patient's home along with the patient. There's no other family member. So think of kind of credibility, trust which has to be built. So I would say challenges are in terms of like things which you need to really accomplish, the way you create the brand, the way you create credibility, the way you create quality of services. Of course, operations, a very, very ops intensive job. So you have to make sure day in and day out, people are going on time, people are doing great service, people are connected with the back end. You think of this from a clinician perspective. A clinician is in your house. He's in your territory in that sense, right? He needs help. He cannot look to a senior within here to do that. He has to call somebody, get on a video call with somebody at the central place, right? So we are subject matter experts at each zone who are basically handling their queries and things like that. So not only you take care of the patient remotely in that sense in their homes, you also take care of your own employees who are there in patients' homes, right? So that's the complexity of the business, but it has been a fun ride so far. There are great days, there are good days, but all days when you finish, you feel a sense of fulfillment. Right. Because reality is that you've taken care of thousands of patients that day, where many of them didn't have their family members also to take care of them. So you are in that sense a family for them. And there's no better satisfaction than that.
I mean, I love the fact that you've drawn a parallel between food delivery and cab delivery and, what you do. So cab delivery, probably lakhs and tens of lakhs, millions of Ubers get booked every day, millions of food delivery orders, now millions of quick commerce orders get delivered every day. We just see the app. I see Zomato app, I see Swiggy app, but nobody sort of dives deep into what happens behind the scene. And here you're doing something much more critical. It's not, booking a plumber, it's not booking food delivery, it's booking a caregiver who's going to stay with you. So it becomes very high risk, high trust, and slightly high stakes as well. How do you monitor operations of this level? Because you told me that you service 5,000 requests a day, so 5,000 sort of patient visits, I can say, a day. How do you monitor this? What are the options? What are the operations looking like? How do you manage a behemoth of operations like this?
Many to many kind of problem which you solve. So like you basically have 5,000 patients. You decide basically the clinicians who will go into those patients to serve them. And then of course all our clinicians carry a mobile app. So their interaction, their operational parameters are tracked using that app. Their GPS is on, we know where they are.
Like the driver app in Swiggy, you have a clinician app.
The clinician app where when are they reaching the patient's home, how they are supporting the patient. We do video calls with the patients. We do basically video consultation with patient as required. All these apps they can make their case files using that. They take all the patients' data using that. They upload that data using that. In case of they are doing wound care or they're doing any injection and so on and so forth, they'll take pictures of the wound and also take care of that with the subject matter expert at the back end. So the connectivity is completely done using the app. Right. And that's a medium we use to monitor that also. And then of course basis what treatment plan they've created. So once, for example, somebody comes to a patient's home for the first time, he will look at the patient, look at the discharge summary which has come from the hospital and create a treatment plan.
Right.
The treatment plan will get vetted by a central team.
Right.
Center again was saying there's two critical aspects. You have to run operations well and you have to run the medical piece well, because that's the most critical. I'm here to take care of the patient's medical well-being and making sure that their recovery happens as per the plan agreed upon.
Yeah.
With my clinician as along the treating doctor.
And on time.
And on time, right? So that's what you need to do. So the medical aspect of this becomes very important. So when we set up the company also, there are two strong layers. Technology is a very critical piece in this, and medical expertise is a very critical piece in this.
Got it. Now, okay, because I started the entire conversation saying that, okay, building a software, coding a software, I won't say it's easy, but it's fairly easy. Shipping software and taking it live on the internet and getting customers, I would say is fairly easy. How do you even start thinking about building an operations intensive business like yourself, or even an Uber and Ola or a Swiggy or a Zomato? Where does it start? How do you start thinking about, okay, I have to recruit 5,000 people, or I have to service, how do I get to a scale of 5,000 people today? So how do you start? What are the building blocks of building such a networked business? Do you start building an app, or do you start recruiting on-site people? What do you do?
So first thing first, I don't say building a software is very easy job. My CTO will take offense to it if I agree to that. But the point is that when we started building this, the whole idea is when you're creating something new, the most important thing is the product market fit.
Okay.
I create a product, in this case service, we call it product, but it's of course service. So we create a service. How do you make a physiotherapy service work? How do you make an ICU setup at home service work? What are the contours of the product? How will you do that? What is the value proposition for the customer? So first you create the product.
Figure out the service,
and then take it to the market and test it out. At what price point? I mean, you'll always have some things in your head saying, okay, whatever product I create, service I create, this is the price which patients are willing to pay or customers are willing to pay. But are they really willing to pay that? So product market fit becomes very important for any service. So for us also, the first business plan we wrote versus what we ended up doing in the second year were two totally different things. We said, okay, we basically were replicating the family doctor business in this, saying, okay, doctors used to go to patients' home 40 years back in this country, right?
That was your first idea.
That because saying we'll go home. So when you go home, doctors come to your mind.
Book a doctor.
Yeah, book a doctor, right? And when you started working on that, realized that was not that's not the easiest thing to do. So we looked at doctor, of course. Then can nurses go? Can physiotherapists go? Can medical equipment go? That's how the whole thing plays out. So I would say product market fit becomes very important. Process creation becomes very important. I said it's a medical service. You have to make sure it runs flawlessly. So product market fit. After that, of course, how do you decide pricing? How do you scale? How do you get the right, what we say CAC, right? Customer acquisition cost versus lifetime value. This is a healthcare service. And once I enter a patient home, in this particular case, I want to do all medical services which can be done at home myself for the patient. So that's how you completely build the other services along with it, right? Then what's your customer acquisition cost? What's the LTV versus CAC ratio? How do you build those? So that's how you build the business.
So make a sustainable business model.
And then of course execute each piece of that. Of course it's operationally intensive. You start with a service and the ideas of, do you get it perfect or do you take it out? And how do you get the right mix of the two, right? If you keep thinking of making it perfect,
take it to the market.
Take it to the market, right? So you have to keep balancing it. I'll give you an example. You start Bangalore, you test it out in 3 areas. You say, okay, we start in Koramangala, HSR, Indiranagar, right?
Okay.
And then say, okay, now I'll launch it in whole of Bangalore. If I launch it in whole of Bangalore, the way I do marketing and the way I do campaigns, the way I sign up hospitals, patients can come from any area. If somebody calls me from Rajinagar, I better serve that patient. I cannot say no, correct? Because I'm creating a healthcare service like that. So those are challenges which you continuously build. Then what level of technology do you put? Then how do you create the app? What features you put on that? This is not a service which is existing somewhere. Not in India, not elsewhere, not at this way of operating, right? At this scale of operating. India is a very large country in that sense, right? So how do you build those kind of things? So I would say product market fit, getting the pricing right, getting the technology right, getting the process right, you go in that. Of course, people are very critical in this. This whole business is built around people. How do you get the right cadre of people? How do you train them? In this particular case, we ended up working with government significantly to create the whole caregiver cadre. So nurses are available, physiotherapists are available, doctors are there, right? Because they have been there. They haven't gone to patients' home so much. So we can work with them and say, okay, how do you go to patient home? What's the value proposition for you to go to patient home versus being in the clinic?
Oh, so this was a new behavior that you were trying to...
Exactly, that's what you're trying to do for them, right? But also caregiver is a new cadre you create because that cadre didn't exist. So how do you create that cadre in large numbers? I mean, India is a country with 12 crore people who are 60 plus today.
Right.
India will have 350 million, 35 crore people who are 60 plus in next 20 years. It's bigger than current US population.
Right.
So how do you cater to that kind of a scale? How do you create the services? How do you create the people for that? How do you train them? How do you retain them, right? How do you move them from one place of in this country to another place in this country? Because not everybody wants to do this, right? So I mean, we have enough people who come from North India across the country to Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, and they work in those places. How do you create that cadre? How do you train them? How do you move them? How do you make sure that they like rice and not yearn for roti as they are used to? I mean, I'm just giving you like very, very basic things also, but all those things become very critical in this.
Okay, so before scaling, I figure out what service I'm offering. It could be ICU at home, it could be blood tests at home. Once I figured out a suite of service, I'm sure you would have launched with very few services initially. You figured that out, you figured out demand for that, you figured out your core areas in Bangalore or Delhi in Mumbai where you should start with. And the initial visits can be taken care of because you have 10 people on your payroll or 10 service providers on your payroll. They go and they do the visits. Now, once you've gotten this right, you're saying start building apps so that the person who's visiting the patient and in Swiggy and Zomato's case, the food orderer, they should be able to coordinate with the main company.
Yes, central team.
That is central team, right? And then from this minimum viable product that you've set up a minimum viable business, what is the biggest challenge in scaling? Is it just hiring the right kind of people at scale, or is it something else?
So it's basically creating the right unit metrics actually. So especially when you're starting, you say, okay, what's the minimum size at which you can test the unit metrics? And then how do you scale that? So you're right, scaling offers a challenge. So you get a unit metrics going. How do I hire 100 people? How do I train 100 people?
Give me examples of unit metrics.
So for example, if you take a physiotherapist or take a nursing attendant or what we call caregiver is going to patient home, how many visits a physiotherapist needs to do for it to be a sustainable business?
Okay.
Correct?
So they have targets to hit.
Yeah, what price point it has to happen. Now it has multiple problems. It's one thing, of course, they have to do. Second, that you have to get those many patients leads also in that area.
Right.
So if I want to make an Indiranagar model work, I need to get enough visits in Indiranagar organized. So I need to generate those many leads, generate those many patients requirements. And then of course I have those many physiotherapists will go to patients home and do that, right? So that model has to be proven. So I know at certain scale, maybe 2 visits, 3 visits are happening and it can get to 4. So I leave it at that, then take more areas and do that. Second thing which becomes very challenging in this country is that different cities behave very differently. And especially a newer surveys, the way Hyderabad behaves versus Bangalore behaves versus Delhi behaves is very different, right? And different channels are required to do customer acquisition for a service like this. So look at a Chennai customer, they are not so much driven by digital media. But Bangalore, digital media works very well for customer acquisition, I'm saying. Hyderabad, it works very well. The Bangalore patients are Bangalore consumers are very open to experimenting, trying out new things. Delhi and Chennai, they are much lesser. They need more referrals in Chennai. I'm just giving some examples. But across
the country, in Bangalore, ads can get you the users? Digital
ads can get you the thing. But Chennai, a lot of on-ground working will be required because they need referrals, right? They need somebody to refer actually.
They need more trust.
They need more. So they need that level of trust is basically through the word of mouth and not any other way. So there are a lot of nuances like that across the country. And I'm talking of big cities. I'm not talking of like tier 2, tier 3, right? So there's very, very different consumer behavior across the country.
Even in tier 1 cities. Bangalore is very different from Chennai.
Very different from Bombay, is very different from Delhi and so on and so forth. So how do you make sure that, and I'm saying mostly from healthcare perspective, how do you make sure that you are getting the right customer acquisition done? How do you manage your CAC there? How do you manage, basically on the acquisition side as well as the delivery side. Delivery model you can replicate apart from where the people are coming from. Because Bangalore has a lot of language preferences. Delhi has only one language, right? Everybody speaks Hindi, right? The expectation is that you speak Hindi. But here, if you are going to a 70-year-old Kannadiga woman and who has basically spoken Kannada most of her time and is comfortable in Kannada, you have to have a carer who's speaking Kannada.
Right.
Because that's where the trust, that's where the relationship gets built, right? So Bangalore has probably 6 languages you have to take care of. Including Hindi. So you have Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, and of course Hindi also, right? There are 5 languages you take care of in Bangalore. So there are nuances like that in this particular thing. But idea is prove the unit metrics, take it within the city to the next level, then look for similar things as similar as possible, like go to a Bombay or go to Delhi, and then of course from there expand to rest of the places. So.
Interesting. Now, there's a lot of startup advice that comes to us from the West. Y Combinators of the world, and they have playbooks set. They have playbooks that are inspired by Uber from the West and Airbnbs of the West. When you apply such a playbook to India, which is probably a land of 28, 29 countries within a country.
Correct.
They say India is more heterogeneous than the whole of Europe,
Correct.
for that matter. How do these playbooks and this, this written advice land well in India? Does it land at all?
No, I think all advice is useful. Fact is, these playbooks have been created based on some success stories.
Right.
Of course, the context may be different.
Okay.
Principles remain the same. So you have to
Right.
basically modify those. You have to modify the context and then apply those principles.
Give me examples. What is the principle?
So principle is saying that, okay, take as an example that you should run a profitable business. I'm taking it as an example.
Of course.
Prove the unit metrics first time. Get the right CAC for yourself. Now, how do you implement that in the country, right? So end of the day, any business you build, it's for a one model. You have to generate profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Of course.
For any business, end of the day, P&L has to work, right? And then you can work backwards. The unit metrics has to work, and you scale from there, and you go forward from there. So the principles apply the same way. How do you do innovation? How do you make sure that you are taking care of people? How do you make sure that you are scaling business? The core principles will remain the same. Context will be different from the way consumers are adopting the service. Context will be different from the marketing perspective. Context will be different from training and so on and so forth. But end of the principle, any business you run, principles remain the same, right?
Got it.
So all playbooks are useful. I think what we miss out is that we try to implement it 100% as it is.
Textbook.
Textbook. So
It's
the
a
point
prescription.
is that you have to continuously modify it. I mean, as I was telling you, within our own company or is within India, the way you approach south versus you approach north versus you approach west or east will be very different.
Right.
So it's no different than I can give a playbook. You're saying playbook from west to east. I'm saying take a playbook from Bangalore to Hyderabad. You have to modify it and implement it, right? So
Got it.
you have to put the context right. So
interesting. Okay, now I understand. India is very heterogeneous, and Swiggy and Zomato, and you guys have taken over a decade to sort of crack India and be omnipresent in India. Somebody like Zepto, pops up a couple of years ago. Sure, I give them the billions of dollars that they've raised in funding, but again, money doesn't solve anything. Money is not the solution. How do you become a very fast growing, operationally heavy business like all the consumer apps that we use in a couple of years? What did these guys and what can somebody who's willing to build a business like this get right and bypass the years of learning that you guys have done, or sort of not make the same mistakes?
I think the best thing is to...
Are people just available for hire and you can hire them quickly and then it gets done? I'm sure it's not that easy.
Yeah, it's not that easy. I think the process, each of things, as I said, the way you do unit metrics from business perspective, also you have to do unit metrics from operations perspective. So, I mean, as I understand Zepto, because you use that example, they also looked at particular zones in Bangalore to start with.
Right.
And then they go deeper in that. And then they get the model right, saying how to do, like if I divide Bangalore into 20 zones, if I get one zone right, then how do I replicate that into multiple zones? Of course, the more funding you can raise, it makes your scaling much faster because you can put better teams, bigger teams to go higher, start, learn much faster. You can afford learning, you can afford to make mistakes. That's what probably money solves. But the hunger, the drive to build something like that has to be there. And that's why I think many of these companies which have scaled very fast have that. I mean, they have the drive and they are disrupting the market. I mean, you're saying a Zepto or even Swiggy, Zomato, and even for that matter, even for something like Portea, we have been there to disrupt the market. So if you disrupt the market, you have to move very differently, move much faster and things like that. So that has to happen. That's how some of these companies have become what they have become.
Got it. Now, healthcare needs a lot of trust. What's your average order value? How much does an average customer give you?
So it will differ from service to service. It could be as small as say 10,000 rupees. It could be as high as whatever, 10 lakh, 20 lakh.
So
there are patients who have stayed with us for last 10 years.
Fantastic. So 10-20 lakhs is what you've seen customers pay Portea. Fantastic. So, this is very interesting because even 10,000 is not a small amount. Now, when somebody is spending tens of thousands and, even single digit lakhs, trust is very important. Healthcare, has such ticket prices, such, numbers. Healthcare sees such numbers. So does education. So does real estate. So does automobile sector, etc. Now, let's look at these kind of businesses that command high price value. and trust is very important in this because India is a very price sensitive economy. How do you go about, is there a mental model around trust? How do Indian consumers behave like? What gets them to pay higher price?
I think in our case, what happens, they don't pay 10 lakh on day one.
Of course.
They'll pay me some
Over time.
X thousand or X hundred per day, right? So they are able to trial our services, in quote unquote, if you want to say that. They can build, and they have somebody sitting in their home who's working with them day in and day out.
Okay.
So for them, it's not about something which is just starting and stopping. There's no, okay, a physiotherapist is coming or a caregiver is coming or nurse is coming. They'll be there every day.
Okay.
So the trust gets built, and also they can see their own recovery. So our trust, that's why our business is day to day as well as long term. So the trust gets built over a period of time.
Now, how do you scale that trust?
So you scale that trust by, again, there also you get, as you said, the playbook. So once I build a trust with one patient, a kind of patient, I create that playbook with everybody else also. So what it takes to win over your trust, apart from great service, I have to do great service, then I have to X, Y, Z other things also, right? When you create that playbook, then everywhere you do that. For example, I said good clinician is there, but you are not, so what happens in our case, you're not only dealing with clinician. Clinician is not the only company, right? You're also dealing with a senior doctor at central place. A senior doctor will interact with you once a month, once in 3 months as required. For critical care patients, a doctor will talk to you every week. So you know there's a full ecosystem which is supporting you. It's not only one clinician who's coming and doing service for you, right? The whole ecosystem which is supporting you. So you put pieces like that which are involved with you. So their patient knows that I am taken care of. In our case, the most important thing is I am taken care of. So much of elder care patients which we do, the parents are in India, the children are in US. How do you build that trust? So then what's the peace of mind you provide to them? So those kind of things you build. So and then what kind of activities you need to do, actions you need to take to make sure that the peace of mind is created. The value of peace of mind is created. And we do that, and then of course those steps you continuously follow. And this is, as you were saying rightly, it's very ops intensive business. So those steps have to happen every day in and day out, every hour, every 2 hours, every XYZ. Somebody is like, our caregiver is in your home and patient is not feeling well at 12 in the night. What do? They have to call somebody. They have to do some emergency care. Somebody has to pick up the phone, take care of the patient, even if it's sending an ambulance, even if taking them to hospital, because my nurse cannot take care of a patient who needs hospitalization, right? Somebody has to work with them to do that. You need to create the whole infrastructure, you need to create that support. And if you start doing, I mean, I have so many cases where our clinicians have saved patients from heart attacks, from potential heart attacks, and golden hour they have taken them to hospital. They have done basically life-saving activities for them. There's so many lives we have saved, not only for patients, for their family members, because a qualified clinician, medical person is sitting at home. Actually.
Right. So you're in the business of saving lives, like you just said. You know, you've done things, or your network of partners and employees have done things that have saved lives at golden hours. Now, you know, when you have 5,000 people in the ecosystem, people can be good and bad. There can be right kind of people, there can be wrong kind of people. How do you mitigate, how do you prevent certain wrong happenings, you know, in terms of a part of your workforce not really, you know, keeping up with your standards? And second is, how do you keep so many people so accountable to the service that you're happening? So sure, there is trust that you're building on the customer's side, but how are you trusting this entire network?
It's a very, very good question, actually. I think both the things are very critical. So when we hire people, we use the psychometric test, we do all the possible technology we use to make sure that we are able to assess people before they go to the patient home, right? Because in healthcare, the right empathy is very important. I mean, I have to go to somebody new, somebody's house who is new to me, and treat them like my own family member is probably the holy grail of it, right? So of course you assess the people right away before you send them. When you train them, we train everybody for a few days depending on what service they are doing. We train them. During training we assess them. And then we have this on-the-job training where we continuously engage with the clinician basis what we think they will require. We take patient feedback regularly. We take regular NPS, we take regular feedback. A coordinator is there who will visit patient home as required. So these multiple interactions, end of the day, if the patient has to recover, and still it's not that, it's still some 0.01% cases, something will go wrong. And of course, you have to make sure that you have the right ecosystem and the right support system to take care of this immediately. Their reliability becomes very important. Once I'm in your home, I'll take care of you. And sometimes it will happen that this clinician A will not be great. I'll get your clinician B actually. That's a big difference between when you organize this segment. When it's unorganized, I go to somebody's home and I'm not good, they have to find second person.
Yeah.
In our case, I'll do that. I'll do the right handover. I'll train the
Yeah.
the trained person will come and take care of it.
And if they have a bad experience, it's Portea that suffers.
Exactly. So then that's what we need to take care of, and that's where you need to build the right support system, right backup systems, and things like that. So it's not that it's a services business. It's human services business.
Yeah.
Long-term services business, right? Where some things will go wrong.
Right.
But the idea is that how do you make sure that those are mitigated, are handled well, and are basically made sure that it doesn't repeat the same mistake should not repeat actually.
Right. What can go wrong?
Anything can go wrong. For example,
Because in your case, it's extremely risky business. You know, it can.
Yeah, correct. It can be. I mean, things can go wrong in the sense that from as simple as saying, or I will not say very simple, but as mundane, if you can say, somebody not reaching on time, somebody coming half an hour late.
Yeah.
Correct. From there to somebody is not looking at medicine the right way before giving it to the patient, or somebody dozing off. I mean, it's like a patient, you are there for 24 hours with the patient, somebody can doze off actually. Somebody may get frustrated themselves because they are handling a really sick patient. They get frustrated, they may get irritated actually.
Give me an example, how do you handle such situations?
So in those situations, of course, the counseling becomes very important. They get trained for those things as much as possible before they come. The simulated scenarios we train them on, we take them to real life scenarios. Many of our clinicians, we take them to hospitals and train them over there, or nursing homes and train them over there. So they get a real sense of how to deal with the patient, right? But beyond a point, it basically, as we say, the rubber hits the road, right? That's a test has to happen. I mean, it's always easy to say you will go and change an adult person's diaper, right? It's a different thing to go and change an adult person's diaper, right? So feeling is very different.
Right.
We call that as a rubber hits the road test, actually. So it's okay. I have to changing diaper for an adult is like rubber hitting the road test, actually. So.
Right.
So then you do that, and the whole point is that if like 5%, 2%, 1% cases here and there will something, they will not be adjusting to the setting with the patient. Of course, you have to get the new person, replace them. Of course, get the right person who is well trained to do that job for the patient. End of the day, it has to be patient centric. The patient has to be taken care of. It's that you have to take care of the patient as you will take care of a family member.
Right. Now, you know, when I hear all of this, it's basically you're bringing order into chaos. You know, it's very unorganized, so many moving parts, so many moving humans in such different localities. Again, you know, keep coming back to the question that I started the whole thing with. Weren't there easier ways to make money?
I guess some of these things are beyond making money.
Of course,
everybody starts this by saying, okay, this will be a great business. Of course, it has to be a great business. Anything which you do should make the logical sense also. But this business has a lot of other positives also. So.
Tell me, you've been around for 13 years?
12 years.
12 years, okay. What have been some of the roadblocks, either in the business or personally, that you faced in this journey?
I think I would not
What
say,
really stands out?
I don't think it's roadblocks per se, but I think the big change, if you ask me one thing which changed the direction of business for us, and I think for many healthcare companies, was COVID. So
yes.
we say black swan event, right? We saw two black swan events in last 12 years. One is COVID wave 1 and wave 2 are very different from each other.
Right.
So when wave 1 happened, we had to rethink our business model. We have to rethink innovation, because when lockdown happened, 7 months, nobody could go to your homes, right? So a lot of discretionary healthcare thing like a physiotherapist, neck pain, back pain kind of thing, people just stopped because we had so much of panic and uncertainty was there. Nobody's allowed to enter your homes. So some of our service lines were really, really badly impacted. So what do you do at that point in time? You have to continuously relook at the business model, reboot the business model, and innovate. And that's, I think, what gave us a completely new perspective on how to build something like this. When wave 1 happened, we partnered with the government and we launched this whole COVID home isolation.
Okay.
The first home isolation was run by Portea along with Delhi government.
Okay.
First of its kind in the world. Home isolation was done first by India, right?
Before it became a norm.
Before it became a norm, and we did that with the first protocol, SOP, everything was created between us and Delhi government. We launched that, and of course, central government is involved. The whole infrastructure is involved, because that time when SOPs were not clear. The first COVID home isolation was 17 days. The last home isolation was for 3 days, right? So that's the kind of change which happened in those 1.5 years. So we created that SOP, we did that work, and at that time people are not going to offices, if you remember correctly, right? So and it's only 5 years back, correct? But we have forgotten about it, and we created 5 years. 2020.
2021 was the second wave.
20 was the first wave, right? So when it started, whatever 9th March, 10th
Right,
March.
right.
I think 23rd March or something was a
18th
lockdown.
was the lockdown. I
Yeah,
think.
so something like
Yeah.
that, right? Think about it. So it's only 5 years back. And so then we innovated in that. So that whole thing was, and we, over a period of next 1.5 years from 2020 May, we did over 5 lakh patients we supported under home isolation across the country.
This just for COVID.
It's for the COVID actually.
So today you do 2 lakh patients a year. Back then
Yes.
it was just
It's
like in COVID you
yes,
had
we
half
did
a million
that.
patients.
And this again very different in wave 1 and wave 2, right?
Okay.
Wave 1 was like that, totally innovation driven. Wave 2 was oxygen was scarce, if you remember. Every like in the north especially, when it was COVID was very severe, oxygen was the biggest requirement. Then we were probably the largest oxygen concentrator supplier in the country at that time. We worked with a lot of big corporates. We did a program with HUL, where they basically, they donated 5,000 units of that. We used those and managed patients for free. Because OCs were given by HUL. We created this program which was like very, very widely accepted and very, very widely used actually. And for free of cost. Anybody wants an OC, they can call us. We'll go to their home, do it, and manage the patient after that. So both wave 1 and wave 2 taught us totally different way of looking at the business, totally different ways of redoing the business model, and of course innovation. That every day, every hour, you have to think of what to do differently. I think so. I would say one event which defined our resilience, which defined our innovation, which defined our thinking way forward, I think was COVID. And I think not only for us, I think a lot of healthcare ecosystem players, they all were rising up at that time and really taking care of patients in every possible. Remember hospitals at that time, how they took care of patients.
Right.
And so did we actually. I would say that's probably the Black Swan event, and which just taught so much taught us so much about the business and of course about ourselves.
Right. So before I actually,
I'll give one more example, very interesting one. In the second year of operation, we served India's president.
2014.
2014 or 2015. We served India's president,
Pranab Mukherjee.
his wife,
Okay.
in President House.
Okay. They booked it, or
They booked it. The lead came from Facebook. You won't believe it.
are you serious?
Yes.
You're
Their
saying
medical officer booked the lead from.
oh, they wanted a doctor at home.
They wanted a physiotherapist at home.
But aren't these guys ultra connected?
Exactly, that's the point, and that's what gave us the real belief, saying that something like this, the need is there, and people want to try it actually.
Huh.
And I mean that also happened. I mean, and of course we have served like all kind of people over a period of time. But I'm saying some of those things just stand out. We just give you belief that yes, this is it. You must build it. You must do it, because if the number one, and it's not that they are lack of options. People look for more options. People look for more this one, and it works. It works. So you know that, okay. And we did that. We did for 3 months actually, and it was fairly successful. We had a letter of appreciation from the President House.
Wow. Rashtrapati Bhavan.
Yes.
Okay, very nice. Tell me, when COVID's happening, and at the end of the day, you're running a business. Sure, there can be everything that we want to do good for humanity, but at the end of the day, we're running a business. You said, there was a lot of innovation that happened while you guys were on your toes. What was the thinking that went behind that innovation? What was the mindset that went behind that innovation? Was it okay, there is something happening, and we guys are on the front lines in a way, and we can help scale it. Now, when you scale it, does it have to make mathematical sense, or we scale it, we figure out what happens, we'll probably just get something out of it? How do you think about it, and how did your sort of P&L statements look like in those years?
So
because those 2 years were very
yes. So if you look at the first thought in your head at that time, in our head that time, was that it's probably the biggest crisis we are going to face in our lives.
Right.
It was when it came in first few months, you knew that this is something which we have not seen. Any of us have not seen, and we are not even aware of people who have seen it, like situation like that, right? So the whole idea is that how can you help the country to solve that problem? I think that still remained the driving factor.
Right.
Of course, the business piece is important. It's not that we can work without that. We are a for-profit company, so it has to be there. But that's not what is driving it actually. When you start something like that, you create, and this is like I was saying, there's no product market fit in this.
Huh.
You create the product, you take it, and then see how it.
There's no testing time. You're testing as you go.
How does the basic cost get funded actually? So moment we realize the basic cost will get funded, we basically went ahead with that anyway.
So you figured out the math.
We figured out the math at a basic level.
feasible.
So I'm not losing anything to start with. And then say go ahead and build it. And then of course you will find your way around in that, because this is probably the biggest problem to solve in that time frame.
Right.
And if you look back even now, I don't think India has solved those kind of problems with that kind of level of involvement, public-private working together. That working is like of a different level actually.
Right.
So it's very, now I can say that in retrospect, in a way that it's very exciting to do something like that. Of course, not exciting at that time, but it's very exciting to do something like that. That time, of course, you always have your fear also, right? You should not catch COVID. You all kind of issues, right? And we used to wear masks, and we used to go to office because healthcare offices were open, facilities were open. So we used to go to office with a sticker on our card. So we were roaming around. Fact is, you're afraid for yourself also, you're afraid for your family also, but you're still doing so much for the society in building those changes, and that's the high you get in that.
You know what? During COVID, we saw some news, about, I'm talking about two different human behaviors that came to light back then. There would be people who would beat up each other in supermarkets because somebody's not wearing a mask. So, that person is seen as a super spreader. And there is a lot of fear, even a lot of people would not choose to be on the front line because what if I catch COVID and, give it to my old parents, etc. So fear is there. What is this other mindset? What's this other drive that makes you want to make a difference despite there being so much risk? And this is not risk that's glamorous. This is risk that's real risk.
Yeah.
This is health risk. It could be fatal. So what, keeps humans, I'm not just saying you, I'm saying 5,000 people that you had. What kept them going? What was this?
I would say still, if you look at the cross section of people or look at overall people, I think there are still more people who want to make a difference. And of course, there's a panic. Yeah, so there always be in a big situation like this, there'll always be panic. But those numbers are few and far between actually. I think the bulk of the people wanted to do something actually. This is one part, but there's also so many heroic stories of people going out of the way and taking care of patients and doing X, Y, Z and all of that. And I think there's much larger population which did that, including us. So when we did, saying with HUL we worked, they also saying, okay, we want to do something. The whole thing was called Project Hope. And it was HUL's idea, to be fair. They came with, okay, let's do OC for people for free, and didn't matter what your economic background is. You just call us, we'll give it to you. That's all.
Right. So you're saying data-wise, and you've seen this crisis play out once, you're saying large part of humanity is willing to risk it and do something.
We would really want to support each other. That's a reality. That's how I look at life. If those people are not higher than the people who are panicking, the world won't survive actually. So till the time this population is higher than that population.
So that system is in place.
I don't know the ratio. I think this system is in place.
Okay, awesome. Now coming to the audience questions. Bringing healthcare into people's homes wasn't the norm. It wasn't happening in India, but hospital at home is a big thing in US already. How did you convince your first customer to trust you? Yeah, even at the beginning, even 10 years ago, you guys took innovation to the market. So how did you get people to trust you? How do you make somebody believe that, hey, ICU can be at your home? Or was it already at home? You just scaled it?
No, it was not there at home. I tell you what we did actually. So we went and partnered with some of the top hospital chains. And of course, the basically convincing or building credibility is of a different level, or has to be done differently, but we did that. We went and signed up some of the key hospitals, and through them, we basically said, I am your partner to do home care. So if a big hospital says a patient is admitted in the hospital and that patient is getting discharged, and the hospital says, okay, you can talk to Portea, they are our partners to do home care, their credibility rubs off on us. So the patient will say, okay, if XYZ is saying that Portea is a good company and I can do home care with them, they will do that. So when you start, especially, you use the ecosystem credibility to build your credibility. Of course, and how do you build that ecosystem credibility? You build ecosystem credibility by what kind of team you have, what kind of investors you have got, what kind of medical team do you have. So when we do partnership with the hospital, they look at what SOPs we have, who's our medical director, how we are training our people. So their quote unquote due diligence is very different. But when this quote unquote certify saying, okay, you are good enough to be a partner and do this, then that's a great place to start.
Now, when you say, you built a brand and you invested in building a brand, I don't think a business like yours can, sure, marketing can help. Marketing doesn't really build the brand for a sector like yours. What apart from marketing? Because we always think, oh, okay, I want to build a brand, I'll hire a few marketers. What really builds a brand?
So in our case, of course, I have to be there, and I'm not a brand which people will use like I'm not like a food delivery, right? So it's not that I use every other day.
Yeah.
So I have to be there where my target segment is going. So it's clinics, is hospitals, is basically chemists, things like that. So I'm building a lot of this the branding using that. And then when I've got a certain category of that build, I'm doing camps in big apartment blocks and everything. So I'm saying, okay, I'll do a health camp in your thing. So you know that, okay, I'm coming there and I'm a healthcare company for you and I'm doing stuff like that. So a lot of on the ground activities, what we call below the line activities, we did and built that. And then of course you complement that with the brand building. So you're saying, okay, Portea came in my apartment block and did camp, and see if this Portea's ad coming on TV, right? There's certain credibility which gets established by ads also, to be fair, of course. That's how marketing works. So that the combination of the two has to happen.
Got it. Okay. Talking about hiring, you've hired a lot of people. You've scaled hiring. What is the toughest hiring decisions you had to make as you scaled?
I think the toughest will be, say, in our case, especially when we started building this whole caregiver piece, that how do you make sure that
Define caregiver. Caregiver is just a nurse, or it could be a...
Caregiver is basically nurse minus, you can say. Somebody who's basically in patient home, is not necessarily a qualified nurse, so cannot do any procedure, cannot give injection, cannot do...
But they're trained to do...
But they're trained, of course, they're trained to do caregiving. They don't have a degree, or they don't have the qualification to do nursing work. But everything short of that, there's enough work which happens in a home short of nursing also, which we funnily say, if you don't have to poke the customer, everything else you can do. So I think that's the thing. It's in a fun way I'm saying that, but the point is that that's what a caregiving is actually.
Okay.
And so you support patients with their act of daily living, you support patients with their medication. And
what was the tough part about hiring these?
So these people, of course, how do you create the cadre? How do you select the right kind of people, as you were saying earlier, right? Saying that somebody is to be in my house and take care of, like my own father had dementia, and we took care of him with Portea attendants for 4 years.
Wow. Round
the clock. And how do you do something like that? Who goes to your home? How do you make sure that they are the right people? And they have the right empathy to do that work with that patient, and then have thousands of people like that. We have trained over 30,000 caregivers in last 12 years.
Yourself?
Yes.
So these guys are not readily available?
They're in the sense the government runs programs, the GDA and caregiving programs. They're trained. After that, when they come to our centers, we train them also after that actually.
Okay.
So I'm saying in that sense, I have taken, so that cadre has to be created. I was telling earlier, people have to move from one location to another. Where people are happy moving from one location to another, those kind of things, right? Which are the sourcing zones where people are happy doing this kind of work, right? So how do you establish this role, this job as a preferred job actually?
Right.
We call it it's no different than going and hiring MBA grads. It's a pre-placement talk. You go there, you pre-placement talk. You go there to that village or whatever else and take people who have joined from that village, your centers, and have done well. Correct? You run it the way you ran any of the hiring programs with colleges otherwise.
Just the venues change.
Just the venues change,
and venues have become
change,
many.
So how do you do that? How do you create the whole network? How do you work with partner? How do you continuously engage with them? I would say that's something which we did quite extensively and quite successfully in first few years. Not only for us, I think for industry also.
Okay, cool. Next question. To somebody who wants to build in healthcare, what's something about the business of healthcare that nobody tells you before starting?
I think this is a long-term game actually. So.
Okay.
So healthcare, whatever you build,
it's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
It's not a get-rich-quick scheme, and of course, no startup is. I mean, it's always seen like that, but I think the blood, sweat, and the agony which founders go through in building any business or any organization or any system is, of course, is very, very challenging. So that is there, but I would say that it's a long-term game.
Okay.
Most of the healthcare services, especially on the services piece, is a long-term game because adoption takes time. Consumer behavior changing takes time, and not only for us, for any organization. I mean, Amazon started selling books 30 years back.
Right.
It's so it just any of the behavior change takes time. And healthcare in general, people don't want to talk about healthcare till they are sick. So I mean, of course, you can do preventive work, and a lot more work is happening post-COVID, where people are willing to take care of their health. Lot more today than probably 5 years back, but it still is a long-term game. It still is basically built a lot around when people get sick is when they think of healthcare. So it's a long-term game. I think that's one thing which anybody is getting into healthcare. Even if you want to do AI for healthcare today, you want to do analytics for healthcare today, you have to think of it as a long-term game. You cannot think of it as a 5-year project. So.
Got it. Okay. Last question. If you were starting from scratch today, let's say in the same sector, what would you do differently?
Good question. I think what we do differently, I don't say I would do anything differently, other than thinking of how to. Now because I have advantage of knowing this future thing, I would probably build the whole people piece probably a lot more proactively from the beginning of how this whole thing will play out. I think that's something.
People piece as in the multiple people that you've had to hire?
Yeah, the kind of people we ended up hiring, the kind of training we ended up doing. I would say that we will probably be a lot more detail oriented about that. I think a lot of that we learned along the way.
For example?
In the sense that from where do you hire people? How do you train people? What are the competing sectors where the same people can go? Some of that I think happened as we went along because there are no other data available to support us or help us. But if I were to do it today, I'll probably put that whole plan lot more together and do that. Second, of course, if I have to do it today, I'll use lot more technology right upfront. Today with AI and a lot of other technologies, point of care devices being available, things like being available, I would probably today do it as a hybrid service than like only people service, which we are doing today as a company. That's a transition we are going through for the last couple of years. Using technology, can it be total tech supported service for the patient? Of course, it's a support for the patient, so people are critical. But can you make it more hybrid model than what it has been actually? So that's a change which I'm making in a moving ship right now. If I have to build the ship, I'll build the ship.
You will design it differently.
Chips in the ship everywhere. That's what I would have done. So
that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Vaibhav.
my pleasure.
Thank you, folks. This was great. Lovely.